Joy is a really good film. This was released in 2024. It's directed by Ben Taylor. It's written by Jack Thorne, with a cast including Bill Nighy, Thomasin McKenzie, James Norton, Joanna Scanlan. We have a really great cast. And the topic is something that really drew me to this, because it's about the first ever test tube baby and the history behind that and leading up to that. And the bit that I found the most interesting were the variety of opinions, because this is not something I'd ever thought of before. And in the 21st century, when somebody says IVF, how could you possibly ever think that that's a bad thing? Helping a family who really want a baby to get a baby. And I never really thought that it could be such a controversial topic, but this actually really helps to highlight that actually not everybody thought this was a great thing, and that's so fascinating. So I don't know how accurate this is. I need to point that out before I go any further. I don't know if it's 100% accurate. It does look at the individuals who were trailblazing this. We have Patrick Steptoe, Jean Purdy, and Robert Edwards. I don't know if those characters are true to the individuals. I don't know if everything in this is exactly as it happened, but I've not read anything to the contrary, and it's worth pointing out that it has a very impressive 7.1 out of 10 on IMDb, so it seems to be well received. I'm going to assume that it means it's generally pretty accurate, and it really is a fascinating story. I obviously don't want to say too much about what happens. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to watch it, as I didn't really know anything about the events leading up to the development of IVF and the first test tube baby. So I learned a lot. But as I said, when I came away from it, the bit that I think was the most fascinating was learning about the controversies and the different opinions surrounding this, because it's not something I'd ever thought about before, and it's quite interesting. The film is set in the 60s and early 70s, and yeah, the time period does seem pretty accurate. There may be some inaccuracies, I don't know, but it feels believable. It feels realistic. The characters seem really well written, quite likeable. The performances are very good. There are times when it does get quite emotional, and honestly, there's nothing about it that wasn't enjoyable. You can go into this with no information about this process or the events leading up to the development of IVF. All I knew was the name of the first baby, the first ever test tube baby. That's literally all I knew, and the time period when it happened. And it was easy enough to follow, but I learned a lot, and I found it to be a very moving, fascinating film, and I can't fault it. There's nothing about it that didn't work well. So needless to say, if you're curious, if you like biographical films, if you like medical-based films, then Joy is definitely worth checking out. It's a really interesting journey, very thought-provoking, a great story. Even if it wasn't based on truth, the story itself, as presented, is really fascinating. Obviously, the fact that it's based on a real story makes it even more interesting, and ultimately, I came away from it feeling really satisfied with the experience. Joy is an absolute joy. I promised myself I wasn't going to say that, but never mind. It is a joy. It's a brilliant experience, and I'm very, very, very happy to recommend it.